she would have figured that out on her own anyway? And how much of it do you feel like you were able to bring a fresh or different or new idea to the table for Nathalie?
Yeah, so let me be crystal clear. Like Nathalie can figure out whatever she needs to figure out on her own. But I do think the things that Nathalie and I talked through helped her figure them out faster. I made no decisions. I was a sounding board and I would had the privilege of getting to hear any question that was top of mind and give a perspective. And I think whenever you're in the position where you're hearing a perspective, it either sharpens your confidence in your decision, changes the decision that you want to make, but is helpful. And so I think the thing for Nathalie and I that worked really well is actually what she just described in our first meeting, which is the whole intent of this program is to come with whatever question you have that I could help be helpful.
This is Inspiring Women, and this is the 2024 finale episode of the Homeward Grown mentoring program that Dr. Jenny Schneider started earlier this year that will continue into next year. This program is one that I am so excited about. Today, we're speaking with one of the mentees of this program, who is Nathalie Gouailhardou, who is the CEO and founder of a fantastic company we're going to talk about, Neurode. And in the mentoring program that Dr. Schneider created, for all of the listeners of Inspiring Women, I want you to know this. We need more women in leadership. And as we close out 2024, we are entering a time where the leaky pipeline of the middle, people are dropping out of this pipeline at unprecedented rates for women moving into leadership. This program that Dr. Jenny Schneider created is one incredible way that amazing, successful women can help those coming along to be the exceptional leaders that they already are and soon will further be. So I'm excited to showcase this program. Nathalie, I can't wait to talk to you about what you're doing with your really exciting company. And thank you for being on Inspiring Women.
Thank you, Laurie. So fun to get to be with you. And thank you as well for being an inspiring woman and doing the podcast and all that you do on behalf of women in mentorship and sponsorship.
You're welcome. Everyone, we all need to do more. All right, but let's talk about this program. So, Jenny, we always just like to remind people about Homeward Grown, what it is, why you started it, what you're doing with it. And Nathalie, we want to talk about what this program meant to you. So, Jenny, do you want to go?
Sure. So I have been fortunate in my own career to have mentorship both from women and from men, and have recognized the importance of that mentorship. Uh, I work in healthcare, and we know that women make 80% of healthcare decisions, and yet we are underrepresented at the board level, at the CEO level, and at the founder level. And so one of the missions that I have is to really try to give back and give back to founding women, founding CEOs, and women who are interested in advancing their career as they see fit. And that was the foundation for Homeward Grown. We have two components. We have an internal where we ask our own employees, whom are women and men, to apply, and they receive a mentorship program throughout the calendar year. And I also mentor one CEO and founder every quarter who comes from outside Homeward. And that's Nathalie. And today, Nathalie is going to share her incredible journey. She is an incredible entrepreneur doing an amazing business in an area that's really important. So I'm really excited to dig in with Nathalie.
Yeah, Nathalie, let's dig in. So just tell us about yourself and tell us about Neurode and tell us how you got into this program, which is kind of an exclusive program at this juncture to get in. There's a lot of competition for this.
I know I feel very lucky and privileged to have been a part of it. It was such an incredible experience. So I am a neuroscientist by background. I also have ADHD, which is kind of the sort of impetus for starting Neurode. So at Neurode, we make a wearable headband that treats and tracks ADHD in 20 minutes a day without drugs and without side effects. And basically, as a neuroscientist, I was thinking about this problem from a brain basis, but really personally had tried every medication, experienced horrible side effects, and wanted to solve it um, just so I could treat my own symptoms. But then also realized, 1 in 20 Americans and people across the world are also experiencing this and wanted to provide them a solution that didn't come with so many compromises. So yeah, that's what Neurode does. And I found out about the Homeward Health, um, the Homeward Mentorship program through a mutual friend. So Jenny and I actually met at Health, think 2 years ago, through a mutual friend and one of our investors. And he let me know that it would be a very good idea for me to apply, and that I could really benefit from it. And he was very right. So.
Well, that sort of speaks to the importance of networking, right? I mean, we all think about these big conferences, they say network, 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 and that obviously paid off for you, Nathalie. Can we go to more about your program? I mean, first of all, you're a neuroscientist, okay? So like that's not just like any, any degree. That's a pretty serious accomplishment in and of itself. You know a lot about brain function. I think we all think about, I'm even saying it wrong, like ADHD. We joke about it. We diminish it. Oh, that person has ADHD. Like that's how I think people talk about it generally. Can you tell us a little bit more specifically? I spent some time on your website. I listened and watched your really well done scientific video that went through all the different brain functions that go into this condition. Can you just tell us a little bit more what it looks like? And then what does Neurode actually do? I understand there's a headband and stuff, but it's not just any headband. I mean, this is some serious science behind it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you're right. ADHD, we generally think of it as something that affects children only, sort of the little boy bouncing off walls at school, but it affects women in equal sort of prevalence, but it's less, it goes, I guess, more undiagnosed and less noticed because we present differently. And it's not just children. Children with ADHD most often become adults with ADHD. And this wasn't really recognized until 2013 when we started to recognize adult ADHD. And so because of that, we're seeing diagnosis rates increasing really rapidly, especially in adults and women. And the medication that we prescribe, you've heard of, I'm sure, Adderall and different medications. There's a whole bunch of different medications. They were originally developed and tested on young boys. And so the cohort in which you test those medications are generally the cohort it works the best for. And so we're seeing more and more people looking for alternative treatments. But what is ADHD? It is an executive function disorder. It affects focus, memory, impulse control, and it's very much a sort of a regulation problem. And so people with ADHD have trouble regulating these executive functions. It's not that they can't do them, they can do them really well, but having a command over when they can do them and exercise those executive functions is the challenge. And it comes down to quite a few things. So ADHD has a genetic component, and it's got a neurotransmitter component, and then also a brain activity component, which is where Neurode really zeroes in. So the prefrontal cortex, this front part of your brain, is heavily responsible for focus, memory, impulse control, decision-making, organization, all of these key sort of functions. And in ADHD, these areas are underactive. So if you look at an ADHD brain versus a neurotypical brain, you'll see less activity in these areas. But when someone's focusing really well, you really need a lot more activity in these areas because it takes more energy, more brain resources to focus than it does to be distracted, for example.
And
So,
Nathalie, I am hearing the neuroscientist in you like come out in terms of understanding all of these details of the
yeah.
brain function. So if we take the science of it, which you know so well, what then compelled you to turn this into a company? That is a whole different animal.
Absolutely. I was actually working in research and was seeing all of the work I was doing not find its way into the real world, just getting stuck time and time again in the lab. And so I realized that there were certain barriers to translating this research and actually having it impact people's lives that were really important. And the way to do that was for me through a company because I was just seeing so much research never leave the lab. And that's what made me want to step out of the lab setting and into a startup and into a more business setting.
And you've had some success. You've recently been awarded some seed funding, some pretty significant seed funding, $3.5 million, I believe it is. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's right.
It's awesome. So maybe Jenny, like what did you see in Natalie? I mean, you see so many of these now applicants who want to be part of the Homeward Grown program, receive this mentorship, from somebody who is as successful at doing this as you have been. What did you see in Natalie that said she's the one for this quarter?
Well, I think what you just described reminded me of when I was reading her application, which is she's a very intelligent, smart woman, and she's actually focused on something that she deeply understands. And she was eager and willing to what you just asked, Laurie, to take a jump, like to understand that, know that, but then go do something about it and take the risk to launch a business, to try to distribute and refine, distribute, and grow a product is an incredible leap. And so someone who's willing to do that, both the background knowledge and the eagerness to do that is exactly what I was looking for in the applications.
And so, Natalie, what happened during this time being in the mentoring program? What has been helpful to you in as you're building Neurode? What has worked really well? It's like, ah, man, I'm so glad I took your friend's advice who said, go meet Jenny.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think the timing couldn't have been better for this mentorship program with the stage we were at with Neurode. So um, we had just finished up a clinical trial, been really excited about the results, and we're about to launch our private beta where users could purchase the device and give us feedback. And so meeting with Jenny kind of we're at these really key intervals through that process. Um, so we first meeting, I like had all these notes and I just like dumped all these questions on her, but it was so helpful because at first meeting we were asking things like, okay, well we're about to launch this beta. How do we get our users? Um, how have you seen this play out? And just brainstormed all these ideas. And then there was the 2 week interval where I got to implement all of these sort of ideas and test them and see what worked. And then at our next session, our beta had sold out. So like it had all worked.
Oh my
Not a lot
gosh.
of our ideas worked. Some of our ideas worked really well, others didn't work at all. But essentially I was, how do we get users? 2 weeks later, cool, we've sold out. We got all the users. Now at that point, a new problem has like a new challenge had arisen where we were madly rushing to get our first set of headbands out to users in a process that we were trialing for the first time. And I was feeling a lot of the urgency and sort of stress that comes with doing all these things at once for the first time in a time crunch. And so we discussed like leadership and how much of your stresses do you share with your team? And because we want to be, candid and share the urgency, but at the same time want to be a supportive leader. And so we dove into those kinds of things. And so at each point, we were just going through like working through new challenges that were kind of immediately applicable to what I was going through.
And Jenny, as you were in these different discussions and sort of, there's so much energy that comes from like, new challenges and new ideas. But I'm assuming these are many of the challenges that you've seen in one way, shape, or form before. How much during the sessions, for you, Jenny, were you like, oh, she would have figured that out on her own anyway? And how much of it do you feel like you were able to bring a fresh or different or new idea to the table? For Natalie?
Yeah, so let me be crystal clear. Like Natalie can figure out whatever she needs to figure out on her own. But I do think the things that Natalie and I talked through helped her figure them out faster. I made no decisions. I was a sounding board and I would had the privilege of getting to hear any question that was top of mind and give a perspective. And I think whenever you're in the position where you're hearing a perspective, it either sharpens your confidence in your decision, changes the decision that you want to make, but is helpful. And so I think the thing for Nathalie and I that worked really well is actually what she just described in our first meeting, which is the whole intent of this program is to come with whatever question you have that I could be helpful with. And sometimes there's a question like, I don't actually know the answer. Nathalie, I'm not sure I can help you. Let's go to the next one. Or, hey, you know what? Here's somebody who might. I can connect you to that person to help you give you a different perspective. But the underlying thing here is, as a CEO and a founder, so often, and you know this, Laurie, so often you have to like, I know all the answers, or I can instill the confidence in you that I know what I'm doing, when you're like, I have no clue. And I need to find somebody to ask this question because it'll help me get there faster. And I'm looking for some background and information. I think that's why being a CEO and a founder is frankly so lonely, is that you have this perception of how you kind of project yourself. But like, without a doubt, Nathalie can figure out anything, but having a network of people where you can ask the questions to get to the answers faster, I think is the real help.
Yeah, so lonely and also so hard. Every problem that you're trying to solve for is a hard problem. There's, the fact that you sold out your beta, I mean, holy cow, that is just like so stunningly amazing. I hope these are the future problems that you have endlessly, because that's just amazing. So Nathalie, just as you went into this program, first of all, have you had mentors before? Was this the first time with a mentorship program?
This is my first formal mentorship program. I've, of
Okay.
course, had more casual mentee type relationships, but having like a structured program was actually incredible, because seeing someone more frequently, like every 2 weeks, and you kind of get to dig in so much deeper to not just when meet once off and you're like, here's one big problem. You really start to like go layers down into, okay, well, we solved that problem. What's next? What's a deeper problem? What's like a more pervasive problem? And you can really start to dig further in. And I was also going to say, what was so great about Jenny's advice is that there was absolutely no ego in our conversations. It was like, there's no right answer. It's not about like, here, I think you should, like, this is what you should do. It's actually more valuable than that. She would always sort of provide this sounding board, share new perspectives, and sometimes even play devil's advocate, challenge my ideas. And I think that challenge is so helpful, because when you're so close to something, you're kind of in your own echo chamber, and having someone say, well, hold on a second, what about this? What about that? Is valuable in the moment, but also you take away from it a bit of a framework that you can use on your own and go, oh, well, actually, that was a really like insightful question. Let me ask myself that question more. And so it was, yeah, really, really helpful in that sense.
And I also think what you're talking about, the no ego, I mean, mentorship is studied quite a bit. And the things that we know about mentorship is that women don't have enough of them, generally speaking, and they need to have mentorship experiences where that no ego, that's a critically important component of it. It's not, this like I'm just learning from, the wise one. It's coming to a real conversation where you can get real and tangible value that shows that are the most successful mentor-mentee types of relationships. Nathalie, I'm curious for you. You obviously were excited to get into this program. I'm guessing you had some expectations. What expectations were met for you? What surprised you out of this program?
Yeah, I guess given it was my first mentorship program, I didn't have any concrete expectations. I knew I wanted to like as you guys are saying, like it is quite difficult. You're doing this on your own. You're constantly having to solve problems and just hope that you're doing the right thing. And so I was so excited to be like, I have a sounding board. What do you think of this? What do you think of that? Am I like doing things the right way? How are you thinking about it? And so I think because I didn't have expectations, it could be whatever we needed it to be, or whatever I needed in that moment. And I think that was really helpful. Maybe if I had, been through another program that worked in a very structured way, I would have come with more like preconceived ideas about how this should be run. But really, it was just me coming with all of the things I'd been thinking about and all of my uh, sort of challenges or ideas I needed brainstorming on or input on and digging in. That was how we spent the sessions.
Awesome. And Jenny, this is the fourth time around with this particular program. You've mentored so many over the years, and you're going to continue this forward. As you think about this particular time with Nathalie, what was different this time? What stood out to you? You always learn something from these sessions. As much as you give, you get a lot as well.
Yeah, and I had Nathalie and I think we were a great match. I think we had great chemistry, and I every session walked away feeling inspired with how excited she was about her business. And that's not always the case when you're starting a business. There's lots of headaches in that, and it takes that excitement and inspiration for the founder and the leader to continue to drive throughout the organization. I definitely learned a lot more about ADHD. I learned more about the Neurode. But it is the joy of getting to see both the passion and the thought work going into something that somebody's building for the benefit of population, and that was very, very strong through Nathalie and in our interactions. And I do want to say, like, Nathalie and I are a great match, but for those listening, your mentor may not always be a great match or may not be a great match at any given time point. And that's not a reflection on individuals. It's really just trying to find the right mentor and trying to find the right mentor for the right time. I think we grow into and grow out of mentors. And so that's okay. I think that should be an open part of the conversation, right? You shouldn't force fit it if it doesn't work. Right. It is the whole intent for sure for me in this program is to be helpful. And if it's not helpful, then I definitely don't need to take any time. But I think time is so valuable. So mentees and mentors really need to have, I think, a frank conversation. Like, is this working or not? And if it's not, no harm, no foul, but, find something. We were fortunate to have a really great, strong connection that I think was was mutually beneficial and frankly, just fun, which is always added cherry on the cake.
And Jenny, are you sure that it was all Nathalie, or is it because you want to spend more time in Sydney, Australia, and visiting Nathalie? Was that part of the?
Totally.
Well,
and I had tried to plan some sort of visit, and then she had this huge breakthrough in her business, and then came into the Bay Area. So that was harder to get to Sydney.
I came to you instead. Yeah.
So Nathalie, as we close out here, I'd love just for you to give us, some highlights of like, what do you take from this program that you're going to use going forward in building Neurode? And then where do you expect Neurode to be in the next near-term future? What are you excited about next?
Yeah, I think some of the most important lessons I learned from the mentorship program from Jenny is the impact of storytelling everywhere. So not just where you think with investors and users, but with your team. There's there are probably only a few places where storytelling doesn't help, and I can't think of any right now. So just how impactful that is. And the other thing was Jenny really encouraged me to lean forward into going faster. Something she said is go faster, you can always slow it down. And it's funny because as a founder, you're always wanting to move faster. I'm constantly experiencing this sense of urgency of like, we're not moving fast enough. What can we do to move faster? But then when things start accelerating kind of on their own for the first time, and it's actually not your foot on the gas pushing to go faster, it's moving and you're like, whoa, I didn't do that. It can be a little scary. And so she really gave me the encouragement and confidence to not like lean into the fear and lean into the move fast. With that little safety of like, you can always slow it down, which I thought was really, really helpful. And I remind myself of that all the time. And in terms of where Neurode is going, I am really excited to keep expanding our cohorts, get more users trying Neurode, hear more and more feedback, iterate the product so we can give them an incredible experience and eventually move out of private beta and into a proper launch of the product.
Well, we can't wait. Do you have one of the headsets near you? Do you have one right here? I would love to see it.
I always have a headset with me.
Let's actually, I know like we're sort of like the end, but tell us what that is. Just literally, can you it's so cool.
Yeah, so this is a headband that you wear for 20 minutes a day. You just pop it on your head like this, and it combines two key technologies. The first is a type of non-invasive brain stimulation. So you'll remember I mentioned the prefrontal cortex and how it's involved in ADHD. We want to boost that activity so your brain can activate more neurons and provide you with more focus. And then we also measure the brain using a technique called FNIRS. And it's basically a light-based method of measuring brain activity. And that's impactful because we need to measure, one, that the therapeutic is being delivered the way we want it to, that it's increasing brain activity, and two, so we can help you actually track your improvements. Mental health can be a very sort of vague, can be a little bit behind the traditional medical system of like measuring everything. It can be quite vague to know if you're improving and in what ways. And so we bring some precision there by measuring your brain, tracking those improvements, and sharing them with the patient.
Well, it is exciting to see, and I am really excited to hear what happens with this launch that you're doing. We're closing out on Inspiring Women, and where I started was talking about my excitement for this Homeward Grown program, for all that it brings, and for someone as accomplished as Dr. Jenny Schneider to take the time to build this program. It's exceptional, and we need more women leaders who are doing that active work despite being extraordinarily busy. Jenny, as we close out, as you're looking forward to 2025, what should we expect from Homeward Grown?
Well, we're going to continue the program thanks to the great success that we've had this year. So applications are open. They're on my LinkedIn and I think on our company page as well. But look out for 2025 Homeward Grown applications. So we'd love to have you part of the program. Anyone who'd like to apply, please do so.
All right. Well, this has been another fantastic Inspiring Women episode with the Homeward Grown Mentorship Program. I've been speaking with Dr. Jenny Schneider and Nathalie Gouailhardou from Sydney, Australia, with her company Neurode. Thank you both so very much. This has been an episode of Inspiring Women with Laurie McGraw. Please subscribe, rate, and review. We are produced at Executive Podcast Solutions. More episodes can be found on inspiringwomen.show. I am Laurie McGraw, and thank you for listening.